I'm going to do that right now. Oh, somebody did it for me. Thank you. I love a hive mind. I see folks from Vermont, from New Jersey. Yay. Minnesota, Ohio. Welcome, welcome. We're going to get started. We have so much to talk about today. Let me first introduce all of our speakers today and the partnerships that are bringing this webinar to you. We have folks from SciStarter. We have Caroline Nickerson, Senior Advisor at SciStarter, also PhD student at the University of Florida, almost full-time doctor. We also have Alex Duckles from Tangled Bank Studios, and we have Claire Ratcliffe from StarNet. And I'm Tara Cox from SciStarter and from the National Girls Collaborative Project. We're so excited to bring you really tremendous resources today that you can hopefully use with your patrons. And we're doing this all in celebration of Citizen Science Month and Earth Day. So quick question in the chat, and I have a poll to throw up as well. What is citizen science, also known as community science or participatory research or open science? And I'm going to throw up a poll in the chat. A little temperature check. How familiar are you with citizen science on a scale of 1 to 10? Are you very familiar? Are you somewhat familiar? Or is this a new concept to you? And in the chat, let us know. Yes, one more semester, Caroline. We're so excited for you. Okay. Oh, I love the participation, 85% participating. Let's see how familiar we are with citizen science. Most of you are pretty familiar with citizen science, at least 50% and over. Some not as familiar, but we're going to get more familiar today, and with some amazing projects that you can do to support open science, to support your community engaging in science. So citizen science is a global movement that enables people from all walks of life, from all ages, from different experiences to collaborate with scientists and researchers by participating in scientific research, in real scientific research. It's how people are making an impact on issues that they care about, one of which we're going to hear about today, rewilding. If you haven't heard about it, we're going to dive into it today. And this month is Citizen Science Month. And this month, all month long, we are aiming to get to 1 million acts of science. So an act of science can be as simple as taking an image of nature and uploading it to an app like iNaturalist, monitoring pollinators in your community. I see in Philadelphia where I am, the pollinators are out. There were so many bees in the park the other day, and I was monitoring them and adding them to I See Change and to iNaturalist. You can participate by playing games online that support scientific research. There's tons of ways. And Emma, if you want to drop the link to the Citizen Science Month calendar, we have 8 days left now, I think 9 or 8 days left. This webinar, your participation today counts as an act of science. So we'll tell you how to report your act after the webinar. And our goal is to get to 1 million. Do you think we're going to get to 1 million? I think so. I think we're really close. And we still have over a week left. So let us know how you are celebrating Citizen Science Month. Let us know in the chat, what are some things that you've been doing to celebrate Citizen Science Month this month? And like I said, attending this webinar is one of those ways. So we'd love to know how you are participating in Citizen Science Month and making a difference and contributing to 1 million acts of science. Okay, I'm going to pass it now to Alex to tell us about the Wild Hope project and this amazing initiative. Go ahead, Alex.
Oh, I think he needs to be made a co-host, but while Alex gets his speaking abilities, I just wanted to say I'm really grateful to work with him and the whole HHMI team. Alex will tell you more about HHMI Tangled Bank, which is the studio that produces Wild Hope. And then there's a slide after this one about our collaboration together, SciStarter and Wild Hope. But Alex, over to you.
Thank you, Caroline, for buying me a minute while I figured out how to get my microphone on. I'm very excited to be here. This is my second webinar with the SciStarter community, and I hope we've got many more to come because what we're doing here at Tangle Bank is We're producing stories, we're producing movies, we're producing campaigns to drive impact and engagement with nature. And it's been so exciting and so rewarding to work closely with groups like StarNet and SciStarter that really understand how to take our projects the extra mile and make them work and make them something really special. Very brief preamble before I get into the fun stuff. I work for a group called HHMI Tangled Bank Studios. That's the Howard Hughes Medical Institute. Tangle Bank Studios. I'm a digital media producer and an impact producer, and I've got my hands in all sorts of projects telling stories about science. Tangle Bank has been everywhere, I would say, when it comes to science and educational media for at least the last 10 years. We've had Oscar-nominated documentaries like All That Breathes about two brothers doing veterinary research in Delhi. We've had documentaries on PBS Nature and PBS Nova and PBS American Masters about some of the most exciting and groundbreaking science discoveries in the last 50 years. We've done IMAX films. Our most recent one that I've worked on was called Blue Whales: Return of the Giants, which is the planet's biggest animal on the planet's biggest screen. It was a really exciting project to work on. What brings me here today is Wild Hope. And Wild Hope is a series that we launched about a year ago, July of 2023, bringing attention to the biodiversity crisis that we're in, the global awareness that we now have that biodiversity is in need of saving and in need of protecting. What's so amazing about Wild Hope is that our focus is on how the solutions to prevent and reverse biodiversity loss truly are local and are in everyone's hands. Unlike sometimes the comparisons we might make to the climate change crisis, where those solutions are many, but they are big and they are long scale. Well, biodiversity loss can be reversed in the span of a year or even a season or even a couple of weeks, depending on the scale that you're working at. And even the most amazing groundbreaking research that we've found in all of these stories that we've told is still grounded in local movements spearheaded by communities and volunteers. So it's a truly globetrotting series. It releases twice a month for free on YouTube. What we brought here today is one of our particular stories that we think has exceptional impact at the level that anyone anywhere can get involved with. Tara, can we go to the next slide really quick? I've described a lot of what Wild Hope has done already. The range of our stories, like I said, we've got an episode that just released today called Rebuilding a Forest, about reforesting the Atlantic rainforest in Brazil. We've had stories about the Billion Oyster Project, which is this huge citizen science movement taking place in New York Harbor. We've had dams being taken down in the Pacific Northwest. And then if you go one more slide, because I cover all of this in my early rant. Oh, actually, Caroline, do you want to talk really quick about Wild Hope across the series and how we've been involved with SciStarter?
Yeah, definitely. And I wanted to just plug this webpage one more time. So we retooled it a little bit to promote this webinar and the specific rewilding call to actions Alex will talk about. But if you go to scistarter.org/wildhope, you'll see beneath like the stuff that we're just highlighting for this month as part of our big push, all the different episodes and the citizen science tie-ins. So you can see like with the episode Return of the Manatees, which is my favorite Wild Hope episode, I must say. I made my whole family watch it and they all loved it. Manatee Chat is one of the tie-in citizen science projects where you can decode different manatee calls and so on and so forth. There are really exciting citizen science calls to action for a bunch of different Wild Hope episodes. So just scroll down the page and there's a lot of citizen science for you to explore.
Thanks, Caroline. It's these movements are so ingrained in citizen science just at every level, which it really is an amazing way to feel inspired by these big biology stories, but also feel empowered to take that action into your own hands and to contribute to these movements. If you go to our next slide, Tara, the one theme that has cut across a lot of these stories, and the one that I was really excited to work on with SciStarter and StarNet, is the idea of rewilding. I put these little blocks here in quotes because I'll admit I just pulled them off of Wikipedia because I think that they do a really good job summarizing what rewilding is. It's the form of ecological restoration and an increasing biodiversity and restoring natural process. And most importantly, it differs from other forms of restoration in that it aspires to reduce human influence on ecosystems. Oftentimes, rewilding is not about an effort that is hands-on replanting or hands-on reintroducing animals. It's more about letting nature take root the natural way, which sometimes feels contradictory. It feels like we as humans shouldn't we be doing as much as possible. And what I love about rewilding as a philosophy is that it puts nature in the driver's seat, and it helps us recognize that nature is resilient, nature is tenacious, and native wildlife and native plant life especially know how to restore ecosystems the natural way. So these are just a couple of our episodes that have touched on rewilding in different spaces and at different scales. And this concept is the one that I think is so fertile for families, for school groups, for librarians, for kids to recognize as the best way to restore biodiversity around you, but also to contribute to this patchwork restoration of biodiversity at the state, at the national, and at the global level. So, all this said, we've been putting together a packet of resources for the last couple of months that make these ideas accessible, that connect them to broader messages of biodiversity loss, biodiversity recovery, and the importance of all of us being engaged in these movements. And then we tee up through these stories the opportunity for everyone to get engaged. So what I would love to do, if we do have the time, and I'll look to Tara and Caroline to confirm, we put together a 6-minute video that shows these stories in action and what we mean when we talk about rewilding and helping native plant life. It's embedded on the next slide, Tara.
Yeah.
And I always, whenever I show a video in a presentation, I will always put a QR code if you get bored and fidgety and need to do something. It's a QR code to sign up to our Wild Hope newsletter, which is the best way to stay engaged with what we're doing. I get fidgety after 5 minutes too. So if you need something to do, go ahead and scan that QR code and stay engaged. Otherwise, I think you'll really enjoy the movie we put
Let
together.
me make sure that I'm sharing my sound. I always fail to
Yes.
click the share my sound option, and I think we should be good to go. Let's see.
Imagine a beautiful outdoor space. Is it a lush green lawn or a perfectly manicured garden? These landscapes are pretty, but they're not necessarily healthy. They don't actually do much for us, or for the wildlife that depend on them.
I think gardens are part of an old world, and I think we need to build a new one.
Healthy ecosystems are communities of diverse plants and animals working together in balance. And around the world, people are finding ways to restore that balance. The key is native plants, the ones that have grown naturally in our ecosystems for thousands of years, and still can, if we let them. Here in Ireland, Mary Reynolds is bringing back native plants through a movement called We Are the Ark.
We need to learn how to share. If you can take half of your land and restore a native plant community, that would be massive.
Native plant species offer food and shelter to wildlife, recycle nutrients, and revitalize the soil. And people everywhere are discovering how native plants can be a simple, powerful way to restore the natural world. A lot of our farmland used to be prairie. Coastal cities used to be wetlands and forests. And we can restore these ecosystems if we make the effort. Programs to do just that are sprouting up everywhere. Miami, Florida is a shining example.
I think most people have this idea of Miami being this lush, gorgeous green place, but it's all plants which are not originally from this part of the world. The real Miami, before we started changing it, looked very, very different. The main ecosystem we had was the pine rocklands. We lost about 98% of it.
But But today, those native pine rockland forests have an ally. Daniela Champney and the Native Plant Network at Fairchild Tropical Botanic Garden.
The idea is planting it back 1 yard at a time.
Leading the charge is a new generation of native plant champions. With support from Daniela and the Native Plant Network, students at Pine Lake Elementary are turning part of their schoolyard back into a pine rockland.
This space has been kind of a work in progress for about the last 4 years, and the students are the ones who are the truest ambassadors of this.
Here at Pine Lake, restoring habitat means uprooting non-native plants and replanting native species. And having the right tools makes all the difference.
If you want to plant in Miami, you usually use a pickaxe. We don't have nice, rich, soft soil. We have coral rock and some sand. But that's exactly what the pan-rockland plants need and want and love.
Whew, we're gonna get our workout here today.
From replanting, to watering, to keeping non-native plants at bay, young people everywhere are making patches of native habitat their own. And the solutions are as diverse as the communities leading them. Back in Ireland, rewilding a schoolyard meant just letting nature take over, no planting required. The transition from well-groomed garden to native plant paradise might take some time. So whatever you call it, a native garden, an ark, a wild patch, it helps to let people know that something special is happening.
We ask people to put up a sign, and it gives them almost like permission to celebrate what they've been doing.
If we really want to bring native plants back, we need a lot of people from the community to participate.
It's, I think, so important to connect kids from a young age to what is here, what was here, what can be here again.
It doesn't take much to go back to becoming guardians instead of gardeners.
By embracing native plants, we can give local habitats a chance to recover and thrive. So let's reimagine what nature can be in our communities and work together to restore ecosystems that our native plants and wildlife can call home.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you, everybody. That video comes from it's a long line of us working on similar projects, many of which with StarNet in the past and with SciStarter, knowing how valuable video is as a tool. We wanted something that was very shareable on social media so that the word can get out, but we also know how many libraries like to use videos like this to kick off an activity or to kick off some time outside or to kick off the prompts for parents to bring home to think about this type of science in their own backyards. We know how valuable video is in the classroom for educators to use to clearly and in fun visual ways demonstrate not just the concepts that we're describing, but to show how many people and how many faces and how many communities can get involved in these type of activities. So we're really happy that this is out there as an outreach tool to start these conversations and to be used in these type of events. And Tara, if you go to the next slide. We also, so I mentioned the video, it's available in both English and Spanish, released on YouTube and Facebook on the SciStarter accounts. Claire's going to go into detail in just a minute, but we packaged this together and built all of these materials side by side to run this video alongside a library facilitation guide that walks through all of the different projects and values and reasons behind these type of activities, as well as activities specifically for rewilding your own native place and building an ark, creating a garden sign. I love putting the A in STEM. Let's get more STEAM out there. And I think that activity of a crafts project to show that this is a native space is a really fun way to engage communities and to especially engage kids that might not think of science or biology as their calling, but creativity through nature is a really exciting opportunity to foster and create. And then, of course, running a BioBlitz, I like to think of BioBlitzes as the way to fully understand the nature that you have worked so hard to recover. And it's great to run a BioBlitz the moment after you've created a wild space, or season by season or year by year, to see that nature come back in. And then, of course, SciStarter has been a great ally in finding the opportunities to link this to true community science efforts. It's not just about doing the effort yourself, but contributing to a larger body of work. So there's connections through We Are the Ark itself and contributing to their global network of natural gardens, but then also BioBlitzes through the trusted network of iNaturalists to show this collective body of observations that are being cataloged and used by scientists. And then, of course, critical to our work at Tangle Bank is always evaluating the work that's gone into these activities and how they're actually being used at libraries. This is now the 4th project that we've had in the public library system that's continued to iterate on these materials, or this type of material. And we use evaluation to make sure we're doing the job right and that we're actually making the impact that we set out to do. So for anyone who does participate in these activities, we hope to follow up with you with some evaluation to make sure that, yes, indeed, what we hope is happening through these resources really is something that you're seeing with your communities. And at that, I'll pass it off to Claire to go a little bit deeper into some of the materials that she and her team had built.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. So yeah, as Alex said, we put together a suite of activities that you can do after showing that video clip. And I'm going to put in the chat.
Oh, Claire, you muted yourself.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I just put a link in the chat that takes you to our activity collection that has these activities as well as several other just nature inspired activities to get folks out making observations, doing some arts and crafts, building animal feeders, bird feeders, things like that. So check out that activity collection. But first, I'm going to talk about a guide that we made specifically for patrons. So this is something you could just print and hand directly to patrons. It's meant to be taken home so that families can start making a little rewilding patch of their own. And so it comes with 7 different steps. And I do want to say that some of these steps, as Alex was saying, are very passive on your part. You can, get in there and identify invasive species and remove them, and that's great. But there's also a lot of value to letting the natural processes of plants kind of reclaiming their habitat take over. So, step 1, find a spot. This could be in your yard. This could be in a community space. This could be, honestly, even just digging up some soil in your backyard or in your neighborhood and putting it in a box and just seeing what happens, what seeds are in there that will sprout and grow and make those observations. Step 2, as Alex was saying, display a sign. I think that can be a little, I don't know, intimidating or feel a little awkward if you are in a neighborhood with like immaculate lawns and people who are, very clear about what is a garden and what is a lawn and what is a rock path. And if you're going to allow a spot to rewild, it's going to look a little messy. So a sign can help others know what your intent is with this piece of land. And it just, it brings that awareness and brings in just some fun and some art that you can do as well. Step 3, set the seeds free. Just kind of, if you need to, you can till a little bit. There are instructions in the guide for how to how to remove sod if you want to do that in ways that do not include using chemicals and maybe reintroducing some native seeds, but there's more instructions there. On the next slide, step 4 is break down some barriers. So if you do have fences or anything that can inhibit animals from reaching this sanctuary that you're creating for them, try to get rid of them. And again, in the guide, there's tips for maybe talking with a neighbor. If you have fences set up that's shared, maybe you can brainstorm with them like natural hedges or things that still give you that privacy from your neighbors, but might still allow birds to maybe take nests there, or, you know, like live hedges that will allow the movement of animals to this space. Step 5, again, embrace the messiness, embrace the passiveness of this. And it's going to look different than it might have in the past in this one spot, but really try to resist the urge to pull things like thistles and things like that that might not be as aesthetically pleasing, because they play a role. They play, you can see here in this little illustration, smaller mammals take refuge in those kind of thornier plants, and it offers protection for them from predators. So those types of plants, especially that are native and have been here for a long time, they serve a role in this ecosystem. Step 6 is consider the lighting. If you're able to remove lights that have a blue tint, that would be really valuable to those nocturnal creatures coming in, because that ruins their night vision. So if you can just remove lighting altogether, or even have it be motion censored if you have to have lighting, so that it's not on all the time, that can be a lot more welcoming and let these animals live without stress in these environments. And then on the next slide is the 7th step, which is just sit back and relax and enjoy and spread the word. Let people know what you're doing. Over time, over several months, over several years, this space will transform. And just enjoy the fact that you are giving back to the plants and the animals by providing a space for it to just be untouched. There are instructions in the guide for how to sort of register your space, so that we can understand, you know, watch this patchwork of rewilding take place across the planet. So that's a fun one. It is available in English and Spanish. Oh, and on the next slide, it does include a glossary. So if folks are like, what is an ARC? What does biodiversity mean? Why is that important? What's the difference between a native and a non-native plant? What's the difference between non-native and invasive? You know, there's subtle differences between all of these things. So it does include a glossary for folks to understand what's happening. So with this being a patron-facing guide that you can hand out, we also created a library facilitation guide. So if you want to have a spot on your library grounds that, you know, you've gotten the okay from the administrators that you can just like leave this little patch alone, put a sign there. We did put together a facilitation guide. So it includes instructions for screening the video, become a guardian of nature, learn to rewild with native plants. So you can start off your program just by watching that short video. And then it includes some discussion prompts to follow up on that video and see how your participants are feeling about it and what thoughts they have around it. In the guide, there's an option for rewilding an outdoor space at your library, or just native soil in planter containers that folks can take home, or you can display on a windowsill if you don't have the option of not landscaping a piece of your library grounds. It includes resources for identifying native and invasive plant species, and suggestions, you know, for maybe print, if you're going to have a work day where you have folks out there removing sod or removing invasive plants, you can print those out, you know, or even it has recommendations for inviting in a speaker, maybe from a local nursery or something that has that expertise that can help folks identify native and non-native plant species. And then there are activity extensions to continue engaging visitors in rewilding efforts. So this could be something you do once a year. You can invite people back if you're doing a spot on your grounds and make observations for how it has changed over time. Or it has a link to that clearinghouse collection that I put in the chat. If you want to use that space as a continuing to do, yeah, let's build some bird feeders with kids in this space. Let's make a sign and put it in this space. Like, so there's all kinds of activity extensions as well. All right, now the next activity, we did put together just a really short and simple activity for making a sign. So again, this is to let others know how you are helping to restore nature. This includes a video screening and discussion prompts to start off your program. It gives you the option. You can create a sign for a patch of land on your grounds, or you can just host this program for community members to build a sign for their own patch of land. Again, if you don't have the permission to rewild a spot at the library, go out into your community, see what community partners might be able to provide land for that, or even just for your families coming in and if they have space in their backyard and want to be a part of this. It includes material suggestions and sign building instructions, but of course you can just take this really, it's really however you want to get that message across. So yeah, it's just a really fun activity to get that, do a little bit of art and talk about why increasing biodiversity is healthy for our planet and healthy for us too. All right, and there's one more activity, but I am going to turn it back over to the citizen science folks to talk about what a BioBlitz is, and then we'll talk about the library facilitation guide for a BioBlitz.
Thank you, Claire. Yes, these have been really amazing resources, and everything, as Caroline said, will be on the Wild Hope page of SciStarter, also on the StarNet page for this project. We'll cross-share all of our resources, and everything will be sent out as well in the follow-up. So I'm going to pass it over to Caroline now to tell you about how all of this that we've been talking about, this rewilding effort and these resources connect to citizen science projects that your community can engage in as you are undergoing rewilding efforts. Go for it, Caroline.
Yay! All right, thank you, everybody. Yes, like Tara said, everything's on scistarter.org/wildhope. In fact, if you visit that page right now, I went ahead and edited it so it says watch the recording for today's event, so you can always find it later. We originally had the RSVP for today's event right at the top, but then right underneath it, we have the featured project for this month, which is restoring and rewilding patches of nature. So that teaches you how to create your own arc, an act of restorative kindness, as you heard earlier, that native plant garden of any shape or size. And on that project SciStarter page, we have links to all of the materials that Claire just mentioned. We have links to the Spanish and English versions of the video that Alex showed. And it all comes back together so you can jumpstart all of this in your community. So there are lots of different citizen science projects showcased on the Wild Hope page connecting to different episodes. And these are some of the ones that are on the page that we thought would be a particularly good fit to do as you're basically, when you're rewilding, you're really unleashing the native potential of your community in terms of native plants. So that's a place where, the Great Sunflower Project might be good. Any flowering plant doesn't have to be a sunflower. You can sit there and count the number of pollinators that visit. Pollinators are things like bees and butterflies. You can count the number of pollinators that visit those flowering plants. And that's a very easy activity to do with community members of all ages. So I know we got some children's librarians in the audience. You can do that with the younger folks, but you can also do it with the older folks. I've done the Great Sunflower Project with everybody from Girl Scouts to retirees. But very simple project, but very important too. It basically conducts a census of pollinators in the community. Frogwatch USA is a good one too, especially if you're in the States and you want to see, you can monitor the calls of local frogs and toads. And, that connects back to the rewilding efforts too. As you increase the native capacity of your community, you might have more creatures like frogs. And if you can't make it outside, Instant Wild is a good one. So let's say, you're not ready to dive right into creating your own arc and doing citizen science around it. That's okay. You can ID wildlife and camera trap images from other places in the world. And that's a great online event you can facilitate with your community. You could even set it up in your library's computer lab or your community organization's computer lab, or just have people even do it on their smartphones. Really fun, simple project where you just go through images of wildlife and classify them for researchers who are trying to understand the species distribution of all sorts of different creatures. And that's very important to understand if they're doing well or if they might need some help. But the main project that we're spotlighting in regards to these rewilding efforts is iNaturalist. So if you go to scistarter.org/wildhope, when you click on the Explore the Project for the Rewilding and Restoring Acts of Nature, we have a link to a sub-project on iNaturalist where for everybody who sets up an arc, we want them to document what types of plants and animals spring up. And this is great. This helps us understand native biodiversity. And why is biodiversity important? Well, it's a sign of a healthy ecosystem when you have different types of plants and animals thriving. And even if they're invasives, that's really important to document because that shows us another indicator of how the ecosystem is doing and what's going on the ground. And these data points that you collect, the data that you log by taking simple pictures with your smartphone and uploading them to the iNaturalist app or website, that helps researchers understand species distribution and allows them to know, oh, okay, there are, you know, native species here, there are non-native species there. It can inform action as well. So if we can go to the next slide. Once again, go to the Wild Hope page and you can see this beautiful arc right here. I got this image from Alex, actually. I can just picture myself outside the library looking at this arc and seeing all the different bees and butterflies that come in, or observing the new native plants that are there, and then taking pictures of them and uploading them to iNaturalist. And submitting an observation to iNaturalist is easy. If we go to the next slide. It's super simple. So iNaturalist is a SciStarter affiliate, which means that if you have a SciStarter account and then you create your iNaturalist account with the same email address, and then also go back to your SciStarter dashboard and put your iNaturalist username in your info and settings, the number and frequency of your contributions track back to SciStarter, which is great for us because it helps us evaluate how well these programs are doing in terms of galvanizing collective impact. So we can see, wow, you know, with Wild Hope, we got 40 people to contribute 100 times to iNaturalist. So that's just a bonus. And there are more instructions for that on the specific project page that you can find. But once you create your iNaturalist account, get everything set up with the SciStarter affiliate integration. And lots of projects are SciStarter affiliates, by the way, if you want to go back to your dashboard and keep track of things and just for bragging rights, or also if you want to just reflect on the number of volunteer contributions you've made to different citizen science projects, is a great thing to do. But once you have iNaturalist, you take a picture, you record what you saw. If you don't know exactly what you're looking at, maybe a type of butterfly is visiting your arc that you've never seen before, just take a picture of it, make your best guess, and the community can help you identify it. There are lots of different skilled people who are on iNaturalist very frequently and come in and help ID other people's contributions. And if 2 people ID your contribution, it becomes research grade, which means that it counts to different research projects. So you record where you saw it, so at your arc, and just any other evidence that, you know, different photos of different angles that can help the community ID your contribution. And if oh yeah, go for it.
If you don't mind me jumping in, I will also use that iNaturalist to identify if plant species are native or invasive or introduced. So it'll give you that information in like near real time. So when I'm out in my backyard, I will have the app out so I know what to weed because it's not supposed to be there, and I'll know what to keep because it is. So it's in the process of conducting a BioBlitz, even as an individual, these types of tools can tell you exactly what you want to be seeing in your native space.
100%. That's such a good point. iNaturalist also has all sorts of special tools, like their Seek by iNaturalist, which uses elements of machine learning to help with those IDs that Alex mentioned. But you have that community that can help you ID different things. So it's such a great tool. I think the best way to learn is to do. So I encourage you all just to jump in there, get on iNaturalist after you've built your arc, of course, or if you haven't built your arc and you just want to document your community, that's a great thing to do too with iNaturalist. But if you do build an arc, you can, from Wild Hope, join our sub-project on iNaturalist about recording observations of your arc. And I think it'll be a really nice citizen science resource over time. So we can see and get some good research results about how people are using arcs and what the impact of rewilding has been in terms of native species. Jennifer says using it to ID for things to weed is a fantastic idea. So Alex, thank you for sharing that. That's super helpful to Jennifer, who's in the chat. But yeah, if we can go to the next slide. And now I'm going to pass it back to Tara to talk about some library resources because we've gotten you all excited. You heard about Wild Hope from Alex. You heard about specific resources from StarNet about this rewilding project. You got the citizen science intro from me. And you learned about how you can get started on iNaturalist to monitor the biodiversity of your arc. And now Tara's going to talk about launching this in your community.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So along with StarNet, we have tons of resources to help you get started. First, we have an editable slide deck and facilitator guide to get you started to promote citizen science in your community, to introduce people to the concept of citizen science. StarNet also has an incredible STEM activity clearinghouse with tons of activities that pair really well. Claire mentioned some of them, but there's a lot more that you can go and visit. And then we also have promotional materials that are turnkey that you can download, like bookmarks and flyers and social media assets and buttons that you can make, and stickers, all kinds of things to include as you are promoting and introducing citizen science in your community. I'm going to talk about the kits in just a second, but there's also event recipe cards for something like a BioBlitz. Also, Claire is going to tell you about an incredible BioBlitz guide that she recently developed that's going to help you. But we really have tried to think of all of the things a library might need to get started doing work around citizen science. And here's just a sample of things, but I'm going to go deeper into one of the resources, which are these Build a Kit guides. So I'm curious in the chat, or if you want to use a sticker, or what's it called, like an icon. Does anybody have any citizen science kits currently at their library? Has anyone built any of the citizen science kits? I'm curious. Let me know in the chat. So here's an example of one of the citizen science kits for the Exploring Biodiversity project, which is the iNaturalist project. So a kit is, as you see here, a set of tools that correspond to certain citizen science projects. For the Exploring Biodiversity iNaturalist project, we suggest the kit includes some lenses that can clip onto smartphones so that you can take really close-up images, a field guide. You can include local field guides. We suggest that, binoculars. And so we have on the right kit building guides so that you can, from soup to nuts, build a kit. And it has clickable links to all of the materials that you might need. And so check that out on scistarter.org/library-build a kit. And there's a variety of ways that we've seen organizations fund kits. And we actually have an opportunity coming up, which we'll tell you about at the end of the webinar, to fund some of these kits around bird migration. But libraries have been building kits funded by their local friends and family groups, through their state libraries, through the National Institutes of Health, a National Network for the Libraries of Medicine. And so we encourage you to look for some funding to build citizen science kits and then put them into circulation. It's a great way to promote projects that require specialized tools. Luckily, the iNaturalist project really doesn't require too many specialized tools. You just need a smartphone device, but it's really nice to have these additional resources like the lenses and the local field guide to encourage and promote folks in your community to get started with these projects. I see some messages in the chat here. We have some at my library, not for checkout, but to use for programs. Absolutely. They can be both put into circulation, or you can just build them to use with book clubs, with Girl Scouts troops, with different programs. Eric says we have hiking kits and birding kits. Wonderful. It's great to, even in those kits, to add some information about citizen science and data collection, because, birders are perfect examples of folks that are really engaging in citizen science without really knowing it. And there's ways to add on to their experience by recording information and data. So check out those kits. And then I'm going to turn it over to Claire now to tell you a little bit more about what a BioBlitz is. You've heard about it already, but it's a great way to bring all of these resources together. And Claire has developed an incredible guide to help you do that. Go for it, Claire.
Yeah, so iNaturalist already has some instructions for how to set up your account, but we wanted to take it a step further to kind of help you visualize what a BioBlitz would look like in the library setting. So we have a guide set up for you, and it comes, so the program materials suggested are observation sheets, which we've already created some you can just print out, and each participant can have one to start to track their what they're seeing, what species they're seeing. Clipboards if you have them, some sort of writing utensil, field guides, which you might have in your collection already, but there are some links in the guide for how to look up, species, plants, birds, animals that are local to your community. And then also optional, if you want to be inputting all of this data into iNaturalist, you would need some sort of smartphone or a tablet. And you just want to make sure that you're submitting that. And it's so easy. I've been using iNaturalist. I set up an account when I was creating this activity, and I've just been using it when I walk my dog every day. I'm like, oh, well, it's so fun not only to see something really beautiful or cool or an insect and snap a picture of it, but since I've been doing it every day, I've really been more in tune with the seasonal changes, especially right now. It's so exciting. And the scientists on iNaturalist are very active. I'm getting comments all the time. People are disagreeing with my idea of it. And once, I think Caroline said, once two people have agreed on an identification for a plant or a animal, whatever species you're looking at, then it does become research grade. And the reason why understanding the biodiversity in communities is so important is because then you can start making important decisions on how to make this community more healthy. Biodiversity indicates all kinds of health in nature. Like, for example, in bodies of water, if you're only seeing the same 3 types of bugs, those are probably the ones that are tolerant to pollution. But if you see all kinds of bugs, you see the mayfly larvae, you see dragonflies, and there's just an abundance of different types of bug species, that would indicate that this water is healthy. And that has implications for your community's drinking water. So this is incredibly important information for scientists to understand, and you can be a part of helping them learn that stuff. So in this facilitation guide, there's a couple different options. We did have this reviewed by libraries. At first, I wrote it just as to going on a walk around your neighborhood, around the library, and recording observations. But of course, to make this more accessible, you could also just make observations through a window if it's not feasible for folks to be going on a walk. Or consider reaching out to a community partner and go on little nature walks around their grounds if that's something that you think would be more appealing to your audience. So there's really a lot of ways you can modify having a BioBlitz at your library. The guide also includes resources for identifying plant and animal species, and instructions for an observation warm-up game, which I really like, called I Notice, It Reminds Me Of, and I Wonder. And it's just a way to use specific prompts to get people to really start using their observations in a non-subjective way. So it talks about, what is an observation? How can you, especially if you're working with younger kids, if they say things like, oh, that's yucky, that is their opinion, but it's not really an observation. So how can you get even more into using your senses to explore the world around you? So that's also an optional little part of the activity, but I think it's a lot of fun, and it gets people warmed up to then go out and really make those observations. As with most of our activities, it does include extensions to make this an ongoing program, or even a passive program if you just want to print out some observation sheets at the front desk, and you could have a display for people to record their observations if you don't have time to do a full 45-minute to an hour program. Yeah, so that's our library guide for doing a BioBlitz.
Thank
I
you,
will
Claire.
say,
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, one other thing is we do have some suggested books in the clearinghouse link for this activity. So if you wanted to make a book display promoting this activity, or even have a story time at some point during the activity, there are some suggested books. But in our clearinghouse, there's an option for you to suggest a book. Literature isn't our expertise, but it is for you, and it's in your collection. So if you have a book that's not in our related book list that you think would be great to go with this activity, please, there's a link to suggest books. We would love to hear your suggestions. I'll turn it
Thanks
back
so
over to
much,
Tara.
Claire. I was telling Claire before this webinar that I've been presenting about BioBlitzes and the iNaturalist project for a long time, because it's such a great library project. But I wanted a guide. I was sort of putting it together. We do have a recipe card, but this is a much more detailed guide for putting on a BioBlitz. So I'm so glad that we have this resource now, and I will continue to share it. So just mentioning, both Claire and the SciStarter team, the StarNet and the SciStarter team, have these library networks that are free to join, that that have newsletters and different activities. So we encourage you, if you're not already a member of our networks, to please join them. The SciStarter the Citizen and Community Science Library Network is focused on libraries that are interested in participating in citizen science initiatives specifically. And then the StarNet Library Network is really about STEM more broadly. So we are complementary networks, and we've been working together for a long time now. So we encourage you to join our networks. And then I just want to wrap up before we get to questions on reminding you that today your participation in this webinar is an act of science. And so tomorrow, when you receive the webinar recording with the email, we'll have the reporting form so that you can report your act of science. And if you are doing any other citizen science this month, or facilitating citizen science, hosting projects, I saw some of you hosted events for the eclipse, which had some data collection pieces there, or you're doing a BioBlitz, or you're promoting and have a books, maybe a display or book display about citizen science. All of these things count. And so we encourage you to take photos, tag us at SciStarter, use the hashtag 1,000,000 acts of science. If you go on scistarter.org/citizen science month or citizensciencemonth.org, you'll see all of the running social media posts across the globe of people participating in 1,000,000 acts of science and Citizen Science Month. So we truly encourage you to keep doing that. There's 8 days left and tons of ways to get involved. And just 2 upcoming webinars, one of which is a Flyaways Watch Party. That's another documentary, and in that watch party, and we'll send this as well.
Produced by Tangle Bank, I will say.
Oh, yes, it is. It is produced by Tangle Bank. Do you want to say anything about it, Alex, other than that?
Oh, no, I didn't mean to derail. It's
No.
a Wild Hope tend to be these smaller stories, like a singular place and a singular call to action. Flyways is such a great look at, gosh, it's a global spanning voyage of these animals, and they touch so many people and touch so many scientists along the way. So it's just a great, I think that my big takeaway is looking at how much the scientific community transcends borders, transcends ecosystems, and just works for a common cause. So it's a great moment of inspiration for community science at, I would say, the highest level.
Wonderful. And during that webinar, and then in the subsequent months, we're going to be rolling out a mini grant opportunity for libraries to host watch parties of flyways and engage in some citizen science in the month of October during bird migration season. And so join in on that webinar on Friday, or register. We'll send you the recording and the mini grant opportunity. We're going to be giving out $1,600 mini grants. 1,600, that's right. Mini grants to libraries to host watch parties in October and participate in citizen science. So more to come. Go ahead, Caroline.
Yeah, just to chime in on that too. I know not everyone on the line is a library staff member. Community-based organizations are going to be eligible for that mini grant too. And also, even if you're like just an individual, feel free to come to Friday's watch party. I just think it'll be really fun. The other Alex at Tangled Bank, Alex Pearson, will be on the line with me. And we're just going to have, like, I think a joyous conversation about how cool Flyways is. So also, if you're with a library and you want to just add it to your calendar to give your community something to do on Friday night, that could be invigorating for them to tune in from home or wherever they happen to be. The link's in the chat, and like Tara said, we'll be emailing it out. So the watch party will have more details about the mini grants for libraries there, but it's also a very general watch party that I think anybody could enjoy on Friday about Flyways. Also, Flyways is now streaming. So, you could just watch it on your own too. I just thought the watch party would be fun, so you could ask other Alex questions about it.
Absolutely. And then one other event to wrap up Citizen Science Month is the National Girls Collaborative Project, which is the other organization that I represent, celebrates Citizen Science Month. We're going to have a university and a library on that webinar talking about how they're engaging in citizen science efforts. So please join us as well. We'll send the registration link in the follow-up email as well. We have 4 minutes. Are there any questions for our presenters today? I know we had some great comments in the chat. Any other questions about citizen science or Citizen Science Month, feel free to ask them now. And you can also email Library Network. Oh, I thought I had it on this slide. Library Network at SciStarter.org. If you have any questions about anything that we've talked about today.
I'll kick it off with a question for Alex. So Alex, I think the project you all chose to champion, We Are the Ark, is a great one for April. I'd love to hear what about it, stood out to you, and yeah, why you chose it as like your big push for Citizen Science Month this April.
I mean, it's a great question, especially considering, and you're so familiar, Caroline, with our whole body of work and the many organizations that we've featured throughout the project, the Wild Hope Project. We Are the Ark stands out as one that is truly, it's the most accessible. It can be repeated anywhere. And I think that some of the other larger scale rewilding or conservation recovery efforts that we've featured are doing fantastic work. There's always ways to get involved. We told a great story about axolotls returning to the riverways around Mexico City. Fantastic story. It's educators are using it very frequently, but that's the type of example where, well, to get involved, you can donate to the organization or you can help salamanders in your neck of the woods, but it's not really a direct engagement with what this organization and what this global network is doing. We Are the Ark it's exactly that. It's also proven, if you pay attention to data on animal corridors, especially animal corridors through human populated areas, how necessary it is to have these patchworks of native plants and especially native flowers for pollinators, especially to be able to navigate in our backyards and in our shared ecosystems. So it's not just us, blowing smoke about native plants are good and helping animals is good. There's real proven data about the impact that this has and the impact that an individual can have on creating these pollinator corridors. So it really is something where we know that anyone can get engaged, and I mean anyone, and the impact is real and tangible to native wildlife. And those type of projects are few and far between. So we tend to jump at them and get as much as we can out of those stories.
Thanks so much, Alex. I think that was a great way to wrap us up today. We appreciate everyone who was able to join us. If you hopped on late, don't worry. We'll send the recording and the follow-up, and we'll send you all of these resources as well via email. Happy Citizen Science Month, everyone. Happy Earth Day as well. We will see you all soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.